Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2021 virtual symposium. We're glad you're here, and I'm excited to be joined today by Kevin LeVay, founder and CEO of Score Selling. Today, Kevin and I are going to walk you through how to be more effective in this virtual world with emails, effective email, phone, and video conferencing. Couple things up front. I don't want you to stress about being the super professional on day one, and I don't want you to stress about being taking perfect notes. We'll share this video with you. We'll be here around, and if you have questions later on, feel free to reach out to your region manager or to myself, and then if we need to, we can get Kevin involved as well. So just want to get that out front. So as we walk through this, one interesting thing is that I would have never met Kevin if he hadn't used these techniques. So if he had tried the old, hit me with 50 emails and phone calls, I just didn't have time. We were dealing with COVID just like everybody else, like the people we're trying to reach. And it was just chaotic. So, but using these techniques, Kevin got to us. And we're here today because of that. So really excited about it. And again, glad you're here. I know the virtual thing's a little different, but I think we're really going to come away for some really good stuff and look forward to it. So without further ado, Kevin LeVay with Score Selling.
Thank you, David, very much. I'm going to share my screen here. Are you able to see the Score Selling solutions for Bennett International? Excellent. So I'm looking forward very much to be a part of this. Thank you for that great introduction, David. It's been a fantastic journey with Bennett. So we're going to talk today, just by way of the agenda here, brief introduction. We'll talk about virtual selling. The good news is, we're ready to do this. Goal setting, we'll start there in terms of the training techniques that David mentioned. Weekly planning and time management. We'll spend some time on what we call the elevator message. Before we go to LinkedIn and researching your customers, and a set session, which is a concept we've designed and developed for busy sales professionals. Effective email and a 5-point email introduction before finishing with phone, where we use your elevator message on C-level calling, and some hot points tips on video conferencing. So first of all, with virtual selling, really the question is of excellence. Why be great at virtual selling? Well, there's persistent reasons out there that we have this thing called COVID-19. There is resurgence and variants, there's lockdowns and liability, and overall there can be a lot of customer reluctance to host, among other things, sales meetings, sales presentations with outside salespeople. There's a new administration, there's a lot of regulation coming down, a lot of folks find a good reason to wait. But this is a big one. Technically speaking, we are in a digitally transforming world. These 5 companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, we're all familiar with them, we all use them, represent together a $7 trillion market cap. And in this kind of a digital world we're in right now, the in-person meeting is increasingly becoming virtualized. If you think about it for a moment, the reason why a lot of folks were able to pivot from in-person meetings to a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, a virtual meeting, was because the platforms already existed. This is already underway. Folks are already going in this direction. It's not a matter of which one is better or which one is more comfortable. There's a simple fact that there are some significant merits to both. And in particular, when you can't meet in person, virtual is the only way to go. So customers need sales professionals, though, because they have a need to consult with an expert to build a case for purchasing a solution to their problems. Customers will always need us. And the advantages to using virtual, to being great at it, is I can see 3 customers virtually while my competitor drives to 1, right? If it's an hour out, it's an hour meeting, an hour back. Well, I can see 3 customers doing that virtually while that competitor is driving to 1. I can see 10 if you're going to fly to only 1. And then we can do it all with a net zero carbon footprint, which, again, going back to regulation, is becoming increasingly important. So for all these reasons, it's a worthwhile consideration to be not only using virtual selling approaches, but to be great at them. Starting now into our content with goals, one of the most important aspects of sales. Top salespeople have aggressive goals. They know what they're going to sell this year. They know what they're going to earn this year. And they establish activity to hit their goals. These aren't just wishes. These are plans. They're constantly reviewing their goals. Top causes of sales failure, I found in my experience that very simply, salespeople don't have a goal. or they accept the company's goals as enough, right? What the company tells me I have to do. There's no personalization maybe to these goals. And there's an over reliance on common sense. You know, I know what to do. I don't need to set a goal. I just do my thing day in, day out. But the thing is, relying on common sense, you know, to supply motivation, it doesn't work for sales, because common sense is a survival instinct, which tells you to get out of those situations where you have high pressure activities and low success rates. So common sense keeps people out of sales. Goals is how we deal with being successful in sales fundamentally. And when we talk about setting a goal, again, it is not a wish, it's a plan. So if I want to set a goal, the fundamental question first is, what am I going to pay myself for a year's worth of sales work, right? What is that going to be? And I would establish that in our methodology right up here and say, hey, here's my primary sales goal. I want to earn X. And to do that, I want to, sell a certain amount according to my commission plan to get there. So I'm going to define that primary sales goal and any related sub sales goals. Maybe I want to set quarterly goals. And this is not an exercise where we suggest you take hours and hours to do it, because fundamentally 99% of people know what they want to do inside of 5 minutes when you sit down to do this plan. Say, hey, look, here we go. Let's set my goal. What do I want to do? Profit, if it applies to me, market share. And then maybe I'll break these goals out quarterly so they're more attainable. Now, when we do this exercise, a big goal for a whole year suddenly becomes psychologically more accessible, more possible, more achievable. Very important first step. But then fundamentally, I need to establish activity behind those goals. What's going to happen? This is where most people never spend any time at all, and it's really important. So we have a concept called the $40,000 week, and that is very simply tied to a $2 million annual quota divided by 50 weeks in a year. So how do I ensure that I'm putting in $40,000 of value in sales value every week? And that is very simply by designing my activity to guarantee I'm going to hit my goal, right? You can't show up at the moment that the sale is being done. You've got to generate the activity to deliver each and every sale. And that's what this sheet is all about. So I call this a reverse funnel. We start at the top where we say, what is my goal? And then what is my average sales transaction? So for instance, if I have a $3 million goal and an average transaction of 200,000, then I take that 3 million divided by 200,000, I come up with 15 new transactions. So I need to bring in 15 new orders on an average of $200,000 a piece to hit a $3 million number. Well, great. So now I know the $3 million number has been brought down to a reasonable 15 deals or transactions. Some will be bigger, some will be smaller. On average, they represent, in this particular example, 200,000. So if I do that, then I need to figure out another step here. If I need a total of 15 new deals, well, not everybody I see is going to become a customer. So I need to factor in maybe a conversion ratio. That's what we call it. So if I have closing meetings, which lead to those or precede those deals, then I'm going to say maybe half of my closing meetings, those folks that I'm trying to be, really expecting and working, negotiating to become customers, we'll say conservatively half of them become customers. So to get my 15, then I need 30 closing meetings. Okay, this picture is starting to make sense now. And then if I need those 30 closing meetings, a minimum of them to guarantee my 15 to get my 3 million, then I'm going to say, maybe I need to get a third, only a third of my proposal meetings advanced to those closing meetings. So I need 3 times the volume of those closing meetings to get my transactions. And that's how we work through this. So in that case, I'm going to need 90 proposal meetings over the course of the year. Now we take this activity right down to the number of calls it takes me to generate each one of those, and then we divide them by 50 weeks in a year. So you say I got 90 proposals, that's a lot of work. We'll divide that by 50 and I come up with something less than an average of 2 proposals a week. So I know week in, week out, no matter how tough it is, if I'm generating those 2 proposals a week, I'm going to get to my huge number. And that's the magic of setting activities behind your goals. Now, goals are important and activity is essential, but what am I doing on a weekly basis for planning and ensuring I'm keeping on track? So going back to those aggressive goals, I want to plan my weeks before they happen. I want to plan my days. I I want to fill my days, and I want to handle interruptions as they come in instead of saying there's no way to do any of this because I'm going to eventually be interrupted. We know that the life of a sales professional, the more successful we get, the more interruptions that are going to come. So I handle those interruptions. I get back to my plan, back to my activity. I like to plan, or I like to suggest folks plan at the end of the week before the week really essentially begins. And some of the things we suggest they do is do a goals review. That's the reason we're in this. Go back to that goal page that we just designed and say, hey, look, oh, that's right. That's why I'm in this. Hey, look, I'm doing pretty good. I'm keeping on track. And if I just add a little bit extra here and there, I can get to my goal. So is this week helping or hurting is a question. The week I have planned, is it helping or hurting? Do I have enough meetings, enough quality meetings? Am I blocking time to plan each one of those meetings? And then this concept called set sessions, which we'll talk about a little bit more. It's an appointment with myself to set those meetings and set up those calls with the customer. Finally, I want to anticipate where disruption is going to come. What, from where, and who. We ask people, I say, well, there's no way I can plan for a disruption because it's a disruption, right? We'll say, okay, well, if you had to, where do you think it might come this week? And again, most people, when they think about it, say, well, if I was going to get a disruption, it'd probably be from this account or this company over here. Say, okay, is there any way we can take steps to avert that disruption? Maybe head it off, maybe send an email, maybe check in and see how they're doing, maybe being proactive. And this is what top sales professionals who consistently crush their sales goals do. The set session is one of the most important professional endeavors we suggest sales professionals undertake. And that is, it's an appointment with yourself, as we just referred to, expressly for prospecting. The reason why it's an appointment with yourself is because prospecting and reaching out to those new customers and making those initial calls is something that folks feel like they're doing, or they push it to the end of the line. And there's always something that appears more urgent than reaching out to new customers. By setting an appointment on my calendar with myself, I'm going to say this is expressly for prospecting. I have a specific number of goals, number of appointments I want to walk out of that meeting with. And again, because this has a specific date and time, it's more likely to get done. So again, part of the exercise is to go ahead and go do that, choosing a date and time and decide what you're going to accomplish. We know some top professionals have maybe Monday mornings or Monday afternoons that they're saying, here's a couple, 3 hours every week that I'm going to put into this. Or I break up half an hour, a day and ensure that I'm making those calls. And over time, it really begins to impact, and that important prospecting activity takes place. You generate that new business that you need. Now, one of the most important things that when we're making these calls now is that we have something to say. And the elevator message is effectively, we're going to show you some specific examples here, but effectively designed like this. I have part of the message, which is the hook, where I'm going to engage that prospect. I maybe offer a reference to add credibility. In the body, I'll start with those key benefits. And the reason I'm showing this slide right here is because the body, what we call the body, where you're talking about the details of what you can do for the customer, typically that's what a salesperson starts with. And it's very ineffective. Today, we want to really get that prospect engaged immediately with the strength of the message, and then finish with the body and the metric later. The metric is where we're actually going to put in some numbers as to what we did. The great thing is David has prepared a sample elevator message right here. And I wanted to let David take a moment here and come back in and describe this message that they've designed. It's very effective.
Yeah. And, one thing I think is key is you're exactly right, Kevin. This is one of the most important things that we can do. Number one is setting aside time and your set session. But what are you going to say? Well, when you get these people, and this is going to be used, whether you're using the phone, email, or video conferencing, you're going to have like 15 to 20 seconds to capture that person's attention, or you're going to lose them. So what is that first 15 or 20 going to say? And that's the whole point. You can, this thing is very condensed. And so what I love to do, and this is just an example, we have plenty that you can pull from. You can actually use this one. I don't care. There's no protection here. But I love to start with, we've been in business for a long time. We're financially stable. We're asset based. I can tell you that, especially when this virtual thing kicked off, brokers were coming out of the woodworks, and these people were being inundated with 50 and 100 calls a day because the brokers who were living on the spot market dried up. So What I want to do is differentiate ourselves. We're a 46-year-old woman-owned asset-based trucking company with over 1,000 drivers pulling legal and heavy specialized equipment. So we're predominantly open deck. We service all of North America and have a full international department as well. So, and then one component I like to add too, if I know for a fact that what my customer does, which we will know, and we're going to go through that too, because we will have researched them and we understand what they do. I add a little special. I adder for this one was a modular building customer. I noticed you produce modular buildings. We have several modular building customers who would be happy to serve as a reference. And also in the PowerPoint specifically directed at them, when we get back to the back of the PowerPoint, it has relevant experience slides. This customer is not going to have to worry about what their product looks like. They're going to see it. So again, super key, very important, and you're going to use this time and time again, and it's going to roll off your tongue. So develop yours, use this one, but definitely have an elevator pitch that's right to the point.
Thank you, David. Great points. Excellent points. Another way to put that elevator message to use is by making what we call a C-level call. And a C-level call is something where we're calling the highest part of the org chart. That's why we call it C-level, CFO, CEO. And we're speaking to those executive assistants, the C-level executives, directors, and managers. That's really what it's about. It's a solution approach towards sounding really good and effective as we reach out to these folks. My objective is real simple: a meeting or a next step or a referral. Because when I get a referral from the top right here, it's really powerful to be following up on that referral, knowing that it came from the top. And so defining that a little bit further, again, is contacting the highest part of the org chart. David has an excellent tip that he would be great if you could share and develop that a little bit, David.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to make sure, you're probably used to dealing with drivers and traffic managers and people like that handle the day-to-day tactical shipping. I would suggest that if you get to a point that you can't get to your normal traffic manager, let your region manager or myself use this approach, because we'll go, and that shields you. That means that you're not going to get blackballed because you circumvented the traffic manager. Hey, that was my dumb corporate guy that made that call to the, don't throw me out with the bathwater. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again if things go wrong. But I can tell you this technique works. And we have some examples for you. And Kevin actually got to me by using this technique. So Kevin called Marcy, got Penny, and then Penny forwarded the information to me. So I can tell you right now, with all the chaos that I have going on, if I see something come from Marcy or David Lowry, David Pittman, whoever, it's not a matter of whether I'm going to do it or not. It's just a matter of how fast I can get it done. So, that's exactly what we'll show you in just a minute. Now, the bad, I don't want you to confuse this with already knowing the traffic manager. They're mad at you, or they're just tired of you talking to them and they just won't talk to you. And then this is not the time to circumvent them and go above their head. That's be the kiss of death, and you'll be blackballed forever. So this is a technique that Kevin uses right out of the gate to get an endorsement from the top to say, hey, these guys look legit. Thought you might want to check them out. So it's very cool. And I've never used it before. I have to be in, I've been just selling for 30 years. And I always had a fear of going to the top. Man, it works.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That's it. A lot of folks have a real concern with starting at the top when they're starting with a new account. Thank you for making these points, David. It's not about using this once you're already in, once you already have a relationship, good or bad. It's not about that. It's about establishing your relationship from the get-go. So great points. Great points. Now, LinkedIn is one of the most powerful platforms that most folks don't even use all that much, and it's really very powerful. It's not a magic bullet, but what it is a database that customers personally themselves update. And from that perspective, it's the most unique platform out there, because you can buy lists, you can look around, you can try to do these different databases, but here's the one where the end user actually updates themselves, and most people are on here. Some stats on it. Like over 1 billion LinkedIn endorsements, 41% of LinkedIn visits are, from mobile phones. So people are constantly checking. It's a big company. Microsoft paid $26 billion for it about 3-4 years ago. So its value is established, and it's something that, can be very useful. Most salespeople tend to view LinkedIn as something they should do when they have the time, and that's a fair way to view it. But we have some pointers here. We suggest that very basically, first of all, LinkedIn is not Facebook. The cat pictures are cute on Facebook, but you really don't want to put them on LinkedIn. Most of you probably already know that. I want to stay professional. I want to focus on really the quality of my profile. Again, it's not a magic bullet to go spamming after people, but really the quality of my profile, so that when people come and look at me, what do they see, right? Because they will, as we start prospecting, they'll come and look at you. And then also, I want to be liberal with my endorsements and connections. I want to be careful with asking folks to connect with me. That's one of the ways they can view you as spam. And ultimately, just limit your time on the network. Selling is still very much a person-to-person activity. I would just use LinkedIn, from the perspective of recommendations. I would add LinkedIn to my professional arsenal and just use it, consult with it when I want to find out more about folks in my industry and potential new contacts. That brings us to effective email. What is it we're talking about when we talk about effective email? Fundamentally, it's a written communication. It's establishing a message, an initial introduction, a change in the direction of the sales cycle, something important. I might be confirming a message during the sales cycle, or just using email effectively in support of other sales activities, right? Why I want to use it is that I have perfect content control. I'm not going to flub a voicemail or a phone call. Prospects tend to prefer it because it's non-interrupted. They can easily respond. It's a softer preemptive to making those initial calls, right? Anything I want to bring up, it's a new idea. I can even improve phone calls by suggesting a time that the prospect receive my call, or that I will be calling. Again, it's got that perfect content control. I can absolutely control what it is I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. If I don't like the way it looks, I can fix it before I send it. The real estate rule is a concept we came up with. It effectively means this: if I'm sending something important, I'm going to send more than one email with it. So if I'm going to email a quote, for instance, I'm going to find a reason to send more than one email. If I'm sending a quote, like I just said, I'm going to send another email confirming that my customers got it. Because sometimes if I'm going to attach a quote somewhere, it might get caught in a spam filter. And that's exactly what I say. So if I've sent a document, I've attached it, I've sent it out there, and I don't hear back from the customer, I can assume that they got it, or maybe they didn't, right? And they're thinking I didn't follow up. So that's not what we want. So what I do is I always send two emails, one that's very basic and one that has got the content in it that I want them to see. And the basic email refers to that content so that they know they got it, or they know to go check their spam filter. The second thing is that if both the emails get through, then when they're looking at their email, they're seeing, message from this person, that person, they're seeing two messages from me, and that's an eye catcher. So they go in and, well, what is this? And they go in, oh, that's what I wanted. And oh, that's just professional confirmation that I got it. Good job, good job. So it just is one of those, the real estate rule it comes from just owning more real estate in the customer's inbox. Now, the permission email is really, really important when you're reaching out to somebody for the first time. It really means that if I've gotten a referral, as David referred to from someone up top, then I want to put that in there. But really, it's about asking permission to approach them instead of just stuffing your message full of that sales approach, which customers are getting all the time now. We see it all the time. I ask permission first. Say, look, I've got some information, something like, I've got some information I'd like to send to you. It concerns whatever it might concern, improving performance, reducing costs, right? Or whatever it is, I'm going to put it in there. The closing, really simple. If you don't want to receive it from me for whatever reason, just let me know and I'll hold on to it for a later time. Now, this is incredibly effective when I let them know that I'll be sending it out, a couple of days from now. It gives them time to say no. It gives them time also to think about, well, that was different. Nobody ever asked for permission, right? So this person's different. And if they don't say, don't send it, when it comes in, it's a little familiar to them. So all of these things, by taking a very professional step of asking for permission, go in my favor when I'm sending my new content out. Now, the content itself, again, you may have content already developed, and David's got some great examples. But if you don't, designing one is fairly straightforward. We suggest you put in these 5 points: who we are, what we do, why we're different, what that means to our customers, and why you should either take my call or set an appointment with me, reply, whatever it might be. Looking at the steps there, as we just described, we don't suggest we say something real, straightforward. Hey, I'm a software company. We say we're a provider of solutions of cost, that reduce the cost of backorder processing for something, for instance. So I tell them something specific about what it is I do, cover those terms, which are going to help you describe that service in terms of the benefits, and effectively say why we're different. Maybe pick just a couple items why we're different. I take some facts here: age of my company, size, location, and strategic value, we call it. I put those two together, right? Service, response, why we're so great, but also some data points as to why this claim here is true. And then finally, we're going to put in some references to what that means to our customers, because folks really perk up when they see the types of customers that you're dealing with. So we got a great example here that David and his team have created. And I want to let David take a moment here to describe this one to you, if you could, David.
Yeah, this is from Mike Connell, our Midwest region manager, and I thought he did a great job, framing this up, and it worked. And we got to these people. So he starts out by describing who we are, which looks a lot like our elevator message, right? He put that in, and then gave some feel too for the number of power units we have, where we rank in the industry. I thought was outstanding. That like, wow, they're asset based. They're one of the top 10 open deck providers out there. And we've been in business since 1974. Man, that's a lot. Then he took the extra step to go ahead and attach some basic authority and certifications and everything, just so they could see that as well. So, and then he ends it with a permission question. So I love exactly the way Mike framed this. As I mentioned, this got him through. So what really was cool, this was to the top person in the organization. So again, he didn't know these people, went to the top. A message comes from Gregory down to the next guy, says, hey, you might want to check these guys out. They look legit. Then another message goes to the next person down the food chain. So that tells you where Gregory is. It's working its way down. It gets to the third one. And by the time the next person endorsed it, then she didn't even ask. She just said, she didn't have to worry about permission. She said, send me all the information. We'll get you set up in our system and get started. So that's the way that went, much like the way mine and Kevin's relationship went. So again, I have to tell you that in 30 years of selling and selling pretty successfully, I never used this. Mike had never used this, and Mike probably had more success doing this than anything else he's done, and was pretty blown away and surprised. Larry Poole, same thing. I've never seen the technique, but it's really cool. You've asked permission, you send it, then you confirm that you sent it. You just ate up a lot of real estate with that customer. He's already got the buy-in. He's expecting your email. He's going to read it. I think it's cool. It really works, and I would have never done it before. So outstanding, Kevin. I love the permission email.
Awesome, David. Thank you. And your team has done, you and your leadership of your team, they've just done a great job implementing. Glad to hear that the results are there. So finishing with video conferencing essentials now, what are some of the essentials? Well, we talk about, some basics like lighting inventory, ensuring that the light, when you're doing a video conference, is coming from the proper direction. It should be behind my camera, right? Coming towards my face, not behind my face, coming this way, because then it's going to put my face in shadow. I'm going to be like a witness protection. Overhead lighting is very, very helpful to have. Balancing that light so it's not just maybe washing across one side or the other, and avoiding that solar flare effect where I've got a light bulb that's visible, because that can be actually painful to the eyes to the audience. Sound inventory. When we look at this, we say, hey, look, what does my sound sound like? I want to make sure it's consistent, it's echo-free, static-free, right? I want to ensure that maybe I don't have computer equipment, fan, dogs, or children that's introducing noise and making it hard for the customers to hear. If I'm trying to close out, into any background noise that might be coming from my environment, know that sound is like water. It comes in from anywhere. So if I wanted to do any kind of soundproof treatment, I don't have to go crazy. If I have a solid core door, that's best. But if I don't, which I don't, in my home offices that I'm dealing from, then I can do a heavy blackout curtain on the front and back of the door and block out the use weather stripping as well. And it's almost just as good as having a soundproof treatment. So I never hear folks saying that they can hear anything in the background. And we've got two large shepherds that are right outside our studio that will make themselves known at different times. Have never been heard by my customers. So just some techniques you can use. David's got some points here that I think are excellent points. I'll let David take a moment here and describe these.
Yeah, so this is the pinnacle, right? This is when you made it to the promised land, when you get the customer convinced to do a video conference. In today's virtual world, that's like getting to say, hey, will you go to dinner with me and spend some time so we can get to know each other? This is the next best thing. So one thing I would encourage is to invite the region manager and another guest. So if you're talking to somebody about a heavy OD account, there's no substitute for having someone like Rob Simon or Lawrence Fry who could speak to that. Or if it's a brokerage account, David Mudd speaking about how we manage our partner carriers or our contract partners. So it shows corporate support, it brings the expertise in, but the biggest thing is, it shows the depth beyond just you and your agency and what you're attached to. That, hey, I'm attached to a $500 million organization that has a financial wherewithal. We've been in business, for financially stable and everything. So it shows the depth that we need. And then technically, video conferencing can be a little daunting in the beginning. So I would, advise that you let the region manager set the call, let them run the call. So you can focus on the customer, the message, asking the right questions about how to execute on their business. Let the region manager do the technical stuff. He'll be your assistant for the day, to send a meeting invite out, to run the meeting, run the video presentation, and make sure everything goes well. So then one thing I like to do, whether it's, on the phone or in the video conference, is to get them talking a little bit first, instead of just blowing a lot of information out and hoping, oh, I can't wait to tell you about Bennett. We started hauling cookie. Really, nobody cares. They want to know, they want to share information. So I asked them, hey, we looked at your website. We loved what we saw. But could you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in the marketplace and, how this whole thing's impacted you guys? And most of them will talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and they're not just talking. Use that time to listen to what they're talking about and what's happening out there in the landscape that is impacting them. That helps us focus on our questions, our answers, and our presentation to make sure we're honing on the things that they talked about. So very key. But the last thing, it's kind of a housekeeping thing. You dress for success. Well, if you get them to the video conference, you're going to have a video, and this is what it's all about. So they're going to be seen. Don't come in with a t-shirt. And I know you normally wear very comfy clothes in your office, and that's cool, but this isn't the time for that. Don't come in with your hair all jacked up, looking like Kramer blowing through the door. You're on camera, look professional. You're representing a $500 million company. So let's look that way and come across to them. That could, be a game changer. So,
okay. Great points, David. Yes, great points.
Now, let me give you an example. So using this whole thing, agent found a lead for Phoenix Modular Elevator. The agent contacted the shipper and found out, she was open to talking to us about making a change. Brought the region manager in. And then we created a very pointed presentation that was directed right at them, with all of our messaging, our relevant experience slides, and everything was at Modular Buildings. This is a very cool company where traditional elevators are inside of a building. Theirs is modular, and it's just erected outside of the building. So that whole thing has to be transported with the elevator intact. And we have some great examples of transporting modular buildings. And so we opened with the video conference and shared our thoughts on how great her company was, and then asked her if she could share some additional information. When she started talking, she was so proud of her company. They're a woman-owned company. They have grown by leaps and bounds. And we even talked about getting Marcy and their owner together just to talk and talk shop and everything. But she went on for 20 minutes. And so we went through our presentation after that. We shared our case studies with her. We showed her the buildings that we're moving today with people who are just like her. So she didn't have to worry about, can these people really move my stuff? it showed it. We showed buildings that are just like hers, some smaller, some exactly the same size, and some much larger on 19 axles. That she goes, oh my gosh. She said, well, here's the deal. We have really outgrown our current provider, who is a smaller niche player in the Midwest market, both in geographical reach and just their ability to handle the OD stuff. So I love that you're asset based. We're ready to make a change. They gave us 4 shipments while we were on the video conference, and we actually are moving those right now and through the storm. And we work with her. She is super. Again, this is one of like 3 video conferences where we secured freight either right while we were on the phone or right after it. And it's just, I'm telling you this to tell you, if we get to this point, we have done this for the last 12 months with Kevin, and we are much better. We are much more successful now than in the beginning. In the beginning, video conferencing can be a little awkward, and it's not for us. We feel great about what we're doing. We feel great about the concepts that Kevin has brought to us, and it's really coming to bear in the marketplace. And we're really looking forward to a great 2021. I can tell you that things are releasing. Demand is much higher. Capacity is getting tighter and lower. So the pendulum is swinging in our favor for better pricing, better utilization of our assets, and getting more return on what we do. So, man, let's all say goodbye to 2020 and all that chaos and welcome this 2021. Let's leverage these concepts and be better in this virtual world of calling and emailing and video conferencing. So again, the last thing I want to say is every region manager has been through this, and we're all very good at it. I love doing it. I do a couple a day probably, and we're just having tremendous success. So best of luck to all of you for a great 2021. Kevin, thanks so much for sharing these techniques and what you've done for us over the last 12 months. And I'm so glad that you used them and you got to us, and we are where we are.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
All right.